The season has officially started. I think when rookie minicamp starts, like that's the official. You know what, Marco? It just hit me. There's another topic that I want to talk about, and hopefully I don't forget about
Perfect.
it. But there is surprisingly a lot to talk about. There's rookie minicamp. There's this whole Love versus Purdy thing, which I didn't get into early in the week, but I think it's worth talking about. Dre Greenlaw had an interview today. That's what just hit me. That's a topic I want to hit. Plus, there's like 3 or 4 more things that I want to talk about. So, we're going to talk about all of those things that I mentioned, plus more next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's Thursday evening, which means I got my guy Marco Martinez in the building. What's up, Marco?
How's it going, Jesse?
Good, man. Fantastic. I love this show every week, man. We've been doing this for a few weeks. Feel like it flows really good. I enjoy having you here. People seem to hate you as much as they hate me for our
Perfect.
football takes. So that's always helpful when I'm not the only one being hated on. So that's why I like you here.
Makes sense. I would keep myself around too if I wasn't the least hated guy in the room. But dude, your bathroom, I forgot to text you about your bathroom. Dude, they came out clean.
Thank you, man. Yeah, my wife's a phenomenal designer. Let me tell you, she's got an eye for that stuff. We're working on the boys' bathroom now. That one's actually going to be pretty sweet too. I'll send you a picture of that one when it's done. But yeah, man, a lot of work, but a lot of fun also. And the finished product is phenomenal. So couldn't be happier.
You
Couldn't
want to know
be
my
happier.
favorite part of the bathroom?
The toilet,
The squatty potty.
the squatty potty. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, dude.
Dude,
I
what do you
saw that. And I
mean?
was like, I saw that because my wife's been wanting one for the longest time, dude. The longest time. And I saw it and I was like, maybe it does work.
Well, and not only that, but it's like, it like went with the decor because it's got like the wood theme to it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like just some generic crappy squatty potty. But yeah, man. I mean, you got to put in work in there. So all right, bro. Let's get into it. Rookie minicamp technically started today. More than anything, I've just heard a bunch of interviews, but overall, we're going to hear quite a bit come out of these rookie minicamps. And it's interesting to me listening to Grant go back and talk about his perspective at rookie minicamp with wide receivers specifically. He talked about how he was either able to see it right away or wasn't with wide receivers. And that basically is what they ended up being in their careers with the San Francisco 49ers since he's been covering the team. And I found that pretty interesting. I mean, I thought you could see scenarios where it's like, hey, listen, he struggled a little bit as a rookie, but he was good to go. But he's like, no, I mean, with Pettis, you saw right away, wasn't very good. Jenkins, not very good. Ayuk, very good. Debo, very good. So I found that pretty interesting. But what are you hoping to hear over the next few days from rookie minicamp?
My biggest thing is I want to hear Ricky Pearsall stands out, and I want to hear Renardo Green as a dude, because those are the two guys when you look at like where they were projected to go. They were projected to be. If toilet man out of gold is perfect, man. If you could get me one of those, sign me up. But if you hear that he's struggling, Pearsall struggling against man coverage, which I thought he was, or he doesn't look as fast as his 4.41, or those kind of things. Because like with the receivers and corners, you can see it right away. Like the movement skills is what you're looking for. I know you're not going to come in and win a job right away, rookie minicamp, but the movement skills, you can see that from undrafted free agents. They stand out. And that's what I want from our rookies to do, is come in and stand out. If Pearsall comes in and he looks like a scrub, that's a major disappointment, because it's probably going to end up being when he starts playing actual good corners who are in their second, fourth year, sixth year, and they actually know how to play man, press man. And that's where it gets concerning. So hopefully we don't hear Grant or anyone else say that they're concerned about Pearsall. Hopefully we hear Cowing. His speed looks crazy. Isaac Garendo, you're not going to see much from a running back. I'm not expecting nothing from him. O-line, nothing as well. So the guys are Renardo Green and Pearsall that I want to hear that they look like standouts in minicamp.
Well, Not only that, but standouts against each other. Like, I want to hear it's a good battle between the two, because one thing we do know is that Renardo Green clearly had the best of him. I think he held Pearsall to 1 catch in 5 yards or something like that, or it was 1 catch in 10 yards. It wasn't good, whatever it was. So the hope is that Pearsall's kind of learned from that. He looks good against Green at times. Green looks good against him at times. You don't want to see a washing either way. I think that's one thing. And then you want to hear that Pearsall does look good against press man specifically, because that's where his weakness was. So has he worked on it? Has he improved on that? That's what I want to hear. And then Cowing, the biggest thing with him, explosive athlete, all those things, but he had a lot of drops in college. I think he had like 30 drops in college. So I want to hear that he's sure-handed in these drills and, 7-on-7s, whatever they're going to be doing. I want to hear that he's sure-handed, he's not dropping the football. And then Garendo, does he look explosive? As explosive is what he tested? Because on film, I have my doubts with that. Does he look like he could be a true running back, because he went to 2 different colleges and was never the main running back? So what do they see from him? How do they work him in? Are they working him in more as a fullback? So I have lots of questions there as well. And then I want to hear about the offensive linemen as well. It's what's tough is 7-on-7s. It's very tough to get a good look at these guys. There's not going to be pads. I know it's harder, but just overall, is the feeling coming out that one or multiple of these guys are going to make the team, preferably multiple guys, whether it's the unrestricted guys or not, I don't really care, but is there roster spots for these guys? Because if there is, that tells me the offensive line, at least behind the starters, has improved, which means the future looks brighter than what it did just a few short months ago. So for me, those are the things I'm looking to hear coming out of camp specifically.
The player I'm most excited about for rookie minicamp is Mason Pline. Like, out of all the guys, like, basketball background, played college basketball, transitioned to tight end, 6'7", 250, moves pretty well from what I've seen. Could high point the ball, tighter hips. Obviously, when you're 6'7", you're gonna get tight hips. But can he be something in the red zone? Can he be a utility in the passing game for Brock Purdy? Can Brock Purdy rely on his jump ball abilities? Because if he can, if we get Pettis comps on Pearsall, Jesus Christ, that would be dangerous. But I don't think we should, because he has more. He's aggressive over the middle, so we shouldn't be worried about that. But with Pline, like, for me, it's one of those ones where we don't have a number 2 tight end. There's an easy shot 2-3 tight end. We easily, if Pline stands out, he could easily be the tight end 3 for the 49ers and be a tight end in the passing game that Kyle could envision years from now, or a year or two, where, hey, you know what? We have a number 2 tight end in the passing game. So that's who I'm most excited about, because if he's able to win with his size and be able to box people out and win those kind of a bit like that, win that way, that's something we haven't had in this passing game.
Yeah, there's always this thing where the undrafted guys tend to get so much love. I think we as fans fall in love with these guys, and we tend to overrate them, because really those aren't the guys that. Remember a couple years ago, it was the center. It wasn't David West. No, West, something West from Arizona.
Yeah.
Dante West or anyways.
Donovan West or something like that.
Donovan West, that's what it was. Donovan West. He was getting mocked like crazy by a bunch of people, myself included, like 4th round. And then he kept falling. And then they got him as an unrestricted free agent. It was like, oh my gosh, they got Donovan West as an unrestricted free agent. Can't wait to see him. Last year, there was a couple offensive linemen. There's always a couple guys. They never pan out. So it's like, let's not get crazy with these undrafted guys. I do see a path where Pline might be able to make the team. And I could actually see a path where maybe one of these offensive linemen as well. But for the most part, these undrafted guys went undrafted for a reason. They're likely not going to make the team. So don't get overexcited. And then the flip side is, if these guys look better than the guys that were drafted and they don't make the team, that could be a bit discouraging as well. And we have seen that, where it does feel like an undrafted guy did look better. They tried to sneak him on the practice squad, were unable to make it work. They ended up keeping the draft pick. Maybe that didn't work out so well. So I don't know. It's kind of a catch-22, because if these guys do look better than expected as undrafted guys, well, then why do they look better than the guys that you actually drafted? That's a question as well.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I know for sure what player's gonna look better than a guy that got drafted. I think Drake Nugent's gonna look way better than Kingston if they give him
Yeah,
a
I think
true
so.
opportunity. If they give him
Yeah.
a true opportunity to actually compete for a center or guard spot, guaranteed he's gonna look better. He's a better prospect coming out from Stanford to Michigan. Like taking Kingston there was ridiculous. Like I would have either taken Nugent or my personal guy I wanted was Bo Limmer there. But
Mhm.
hey, it is what it is now. So I want to see those my undrafted guys that I want to truly see get the opportunity to compete is Nugent, and I want to see I truly don't want to see Tariq Owens, but Cody Schrader. I want to see him get the opportunity to compete with the running backs because we've seen what happens with the Niners when they trade up for a running back. They end up keeping the guy who they get later as an undrafted free agent. So let's see what happens there.
It's interesting because him and Garindo are complete opposites, right? Because he was very productive in college, but as an athlete and how he tested, he was awful, absolutely atrocious. Garindo tested off the charts athletically, but he wasn't very productive. So you've literally got polar opposites of what these guys are. And I find that really, really interesting. Which guy will make an impact and eventually make this team? I'm very curious to see that as well. It would be a shame if Garindo doesn't make this team after trading 2 picks in round 5, specifically round 5 for the 49ers, because they always seem to hit. So they got rid of both of their lottery tickets there to go get this guy in round 4. If it doesn't hit and they end up going with Schrader or whatever, then that would be disastrous a little bit. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
I had someone message me the other day. They DM'd me. They're like, "Hey, do you think Schrader reminds you of a former 49ers running back?" I was like, "Who?" It was like Jeff Wilson. I was like, "No, I think Jeff Wilson had more explosion, but they play the same way. They play angry. They're running downhill." So I wonder if that's what Kyle Shanahan and Bobby Turner saw. Like, hey, you know what? The last running back we had who ran angry did well. Maybe he could be the guy. I don't know, but it's also too. It's like you have Jordan Mason who runs angry, and you don't even give him. You've never given him an opportunity to become your
Factual.
running back too. So it's like, what's the point of even bringing in other running backs when you're going to keep Christian McCaffrey on the field 99.9% of the time? Like, are we looking for a running back too? What are we looking for? Just guys to be on the roster?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we're gonna see, but competition is always a good thing. I'm looking forward to hearing from rookie minicamp. It's just a little bit of a taste of football, so can't wait for that. Got a couple super chats here. We'll go on to the next topic. Brother Bob says, "Yes, Marco is way better, not even close." And then Matt says he prefers Thursday format. Appreciate that. Matt says, "Jesse, I sent you a DM about my thoughts on a change in defense philosophy. Saves me a lot of money on supers to talk about." I'll take a look at it, but I'll take a look at it. Brother Bob says, "Happy you aren't homers like Rob stats equals silly." Um, Stats actually, I actually like Stats.
I love
He
him,
and
man.
I
He's cool,
talk.
dude.
Yeah, we talk behind the scenes quite a bit. I probably should do a show with him at some point, but I do enjoy Stats. He and I definitely, there's some things that we agree on, but there are some things that we disagree on as well. So I don't know. I think it'd be a fun show. Maybe I'll bring him on at some point. Dre Greenlaw, I don't know if you saw this. He had an interview, and I forget who it was with, but basically he was, I think it was the NBC Sports guys, Mayoko
Yep.
and yeah, okay. So in that interview, though, I don't want to put words in your mouth. We haven't talked about this. Have you seen the interview,
So I mean, I saw
or have
I
you at
saw
least
clips
read
of
the
it.
article
I
about the
read the
interview?
article. I saw
Okay.
clips of it, but I read the article and how he talked about how you could go through it. But I read the article.
Okay. Well, simply, what did you take away from reading that article and the little bit that you heard from the interview? Because I took some things away, and I'm curious to see if we came to the same conclusion here.
Pretty much the same thing that I've been saying for the past couple of weeks is he's going to be placed on the PUP. He's going to be out for at least 4 weeks, and I'm expecting him to be back week 5, 6. And he mentioned week 6, and I think that's the timeline. There's no reason to rush Dre Greenlaw when you already have a good defense, you have a good offense. Like it's not like he's Fred Warner. He's that missing piece where if he's not on the field, the team's gonna fall drastically. And it sounds like he's finally came to conclusion that, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be there week 1. I need to slow it down because I've been speeding up my process. All I'm doing is hurting myself. Slow it down, recover the proper way, and be ready for week 5, 6 coming the season. He mentioned he doesn't know when it's going to be, whether it's week 2, week 8 into the season. But I truly think he'll be placed on the PUP and he'll be back around that 5, week 6 timeline.
Yeah, that was kind of it, right? There was a lot of optimism, especially from him, that he might be back week 1, and that never sounded realistic. But I almost got, I don't want to say a defeated vibe, but a
No, he was
vibe from
defeated.
him.
No, he's defeated, bro. Like
Yeah,
you
but
could
probably because
tell.
he's not going to make it back week 1. I guess really what I got was, I want to phrase this right, because defeated means like he's not going to fight, but it was more of like a reality check vibe from him. There it is. I got a reality check vibe from him because he started to mention, I don't know when I'm going to be back. It could be week 4, 6, 10, 12. All I know is that when I come back, I want to be fully ready to go. And so for me, that was him saying, hey, I'm not going to be back week 1. That expectation was always it was unrealistic. I'd hoped for that. There are days where I definitely am not able to do the things that I want to do in my mind. That can be frustrating. I have to be patient. This is a long process. So that was a little discouraging to hear because, I mean, this is a guy that when he's on the field, man, he's like Batman. You know what I mean? But now that he's not able to play, you can just see that is taken away from him and how much it means to him. I don't know. It's kind of heartbreaking, actually. I really like Drake Greenlaw a lot.
And honestly, what was crazy is how he talked about how that's the same Achilles that was bothering him for a month in advance. And John Lynch came out and said that it wasn't the same Achilles. So bullshit. Your player came out and said, no, it was. Like, that's the thing that pisses me off. It's like, it's cool. Like, okay, injuries are going to happen, John. Like, there was no reason for John Lynch after the Super Bowl, or like they're in that press conference. I don't know if you remember, he came out, he's like, oh, it wasn't the same Achilles. It was different. It was the other one. He was battling an Achilles injury throughout the year. It was a different one. I thought that was kind of like shady to say. Now that Dre Greenlaw is coming out, like, no, it was that, and like it was the same one that's been injured. And honestly, I truly got the sense of a player going through depression right now. Like that's what I got, at least from from the small clips I saw of Dre Greenlaw. Like he talked about how devastated it was for it to happen in the Super Bowl, and how he didn't know like what was going on and stuff like that. Like that to me, like he was like I had no power in my leg, nothing. It was dead. Like when he was saying that stuff, like damn, like truthfully, you could feel the sense of a player going through a depression due to an injury, and he has to get back to his way. And I think he'll be back to his way. He plays like he's on fire all the time. So
Yeah, it's interesting because, I always thought like week 6 was more realistic, but Lobs actually on Twitter was like, I was doing some research on it and it seems like 11 months is really that mark. And so I went and looked at it and he's right, but really a lot of the things I read were even more discouraging to the point where it's like, because my assumption is like he'll just be back and he'll be fine. But everything I was reading, and it was kind of going through like how long it took high level athletes to come back, how long from when they came back before they were actually themselves. And really the result is it's about 10 to 12 months on average. Usually that's how long it takes to get back. And it takes athletes on average almost 3 full years to fully come back. And out of the athletes that tear their Achilles, only 75% actually do make it back. So 25% don't even come back, which is crazy. But, a lot of that could be like, hey, these were fringe guys making teams anyways. Now they've torn, so I don't know exactly what factors into that, but that's a very high number. And then the fact that it takes almost 3 full years for most guys to get fully back to where they were, that was tough to read. So I don't know. We'll see what we get from Dre Greenlaw. I guess, the way that I looked at it was, hey, he'll be back and he'll be 100%. And maybe that's the case. And hopefully that's the case. But really, the 49ers do have to have some other plan in case that's not the case. And Campbell is not that plan. They only drafted one linebacker and they waited till round 7 this year. maybe they really do believe in Graham and or Winters. I don't know. I believe in Graham. I'll tell you that based off of what I saw, but I don't know where the 49ers are at. And are the 49ers like playing it a little bit risky here? Or do they believe in one of these guys? I mean, I'm not really sure, but it's a little worrisome. Like Dre may not be back to himself, especially fully at all this year.
Do you know if, because one thing I'm trying to look up is the surgeon that did Dre Greenlaw the same as Aaron Rodgers? I don't think they were,
I
but
don't think so.
I thought I had read, and I'm trying to find it, that Dre Greenlaw got the same surgery as Aaron Rodgers. So it's not the same Achilles repair that used to be had when a lot
Mhm.
of other players got their surgery. So it's a different process to give them the a faster timeline to get back. The only issue is it hasn't been done to many athletes, so we don't know the recovery process. Now I could be wrong, but I thought I had read that he got a similar procedure done that Aaron Rodgers did, and it's a different style of tying things or whatever it's to get you back on the field as fast as possible.
Yeah, and it could be a little bit of a newer surgery, right? I mean, that's one thing we'll say about Brock Purdy's surgery. It was a new-ish surgery, and he got back a lot faster than I think what a lot of people expected. Maybe this can be the same thing where it's a new-ish surgery and they can get him back faster. I don't know. I'm just hoping the best for him. I really am. I mean, this is obviously the fan in me, fan of the 49ers, would love to have him there because we know that he helps win games. But just like the person in me really hopes that he can get it back because you can tell, man, it really is getting to him. And I just hope the best for him as a person. I think he's a great teammate. He's a great player. And I just want to see him back doing what he loves because that would be that's gonna be a sight to see. I don't know like if we'll know for sure which game it is that he comes back, but if somehow we know in advance, I think I wanna be at that game. You know what I mean? Like, the energy will be insane for that game. You know it will be.
Oh yeah, he's gonna bring the boom. He's gonna bring a different
Mhm.
mentality, especially coming back in a during a contract year. Like right, like that's something that's not talked about. Like the worst possible timing for a player to get injured. Truthfully, I wish Niners would extend him now. Like truthfully, but I know the right thing for the organization is don't do it until after the year or mid-year when you know he's back to himself because you're not going to pay him what he deserves knowing that he's coming back from that injury. So it's a tough situation as a fan, as someone who like the way I look at it is I'm always player first, man. Like I want right for the player. And the Niners have done right by their players, but I don't think they're gonna extend Dre Greenlaw as they should. I think they'll wait for him to see if he's back to himself.
I think that's a fair thing to do. I do. You know, they extended him early after the Chicago game a couple years ago. Got a couple more years out of him. That ended up being like probably the best extension they've ever done because they got him for dirt cheap. So now he's injured. I think they're going to wait on this one. I think that's probably the right thing to do as an organization. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm pro player as well. I would love for him to get paid. I just hope that he's able to come back and get paid big time, whether it's from us or another organization. So we'll see. Brother Bob says, bring stats on so I can clown him if you read my supers. As long as you're not completely disrespectful, we'll be good. Matt says, in my humble opinion, 49ers seem to be missing that killer instinct. Dre Greenlaw's not. I'll tell you that. So I would love to get him back on the field. If you feel like they need some, he'll bring that. Brother Bob says, I just want to see Greenlaw punch fat Gordito Tom. Why has he got to be a Gordito, though? Is he a Gordito, like a crunchy Gordito? Is that what they are? I don't know. Anyways, I just like double decker tacos and they took those away. So
This dude talking about Taco Bell over here.
all right, this was like the big thing this week. I didn't talk about it earlier. I did my quarterback rankings though, so I did give my answer. But this Love versus Purdy thing took on a life of its own. Speaking of stats, I believe that it stemmed from his show. Michelle, one of his co-hosts, brought it up, and it just kind of spread like wildfire. And everybody seemed to talk about it but me, I guess. But I answered it in my own roundabout way. Either way, what do you think? Where are you at on this topic? Love versus Purdy. First of all, do you think it's debatable? Because
Yeah,
some people
easily
don't even think it's
debatable.
debatable. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I just want to make
it's
sure
like it's
we're on the same page there. It's at least debatable. Some people are like, "Oh, it's just not debatable. You can't even talk about it." It's like, oh, okay, sure, bud. It's debatable. Okay, so where do you sit on the Love versus Purdy debate?
so what's crazy is if I was the Niners GM during the 2020 season or draft, I believe that was the year Jordan Love got picked.
Yep.
I would have actually have taken Jordan Love at pick 13, which is crazy, right? Like I have a tweet
Well,
out
and this
and,
is this. I was gonna say this is not revisionist history. You did
no,
tweet
it's
this
not, it's not.
before
I
the
did
yeah,
tweet
yeah,
this.
yeah. No,
So
no,
I
I
did
know.
have a tweet out.
I'm clarifying for the audience because I just recently retweeted the tweet like a month ago because I saw it myself. So yes, it's not revisionist history. You did tweet this way back then. So go ahead.
So I had a like a scenario where you keep Jimmy for one more year, and then you have Jordan Love come out because he needed a year to sit, and I felt like he had all the intangibles to be a great quarterback in the league, and he showed that last year. Like he showed off. He started off hot, went down. Teams kind of understood what he was trying to do, what they were trying to do to defenses, and then he took off and was a top 5 quarterback towards the end of the year. He was playing really damn good and led a super young team deep into the playoffs. Versus Brock Purdy, a quarterback who came in with a great team that's a veteran-like team already, and he led them to a Super Bowl, and only his second year after an injury. So when you look at all this, I think there's two ways I look at it. Who's the quarterback? And this is kind of a way, I guess people are like, "Oh, this is your out to not have to answer the question," but I'll answer who's better right now. But the way I look at it is you have the better quarterback for the now, right? And I think that's Purdy for the team of the now because he already has everything. He's not doing too much. He's not trying to be this quarterback that's carrying a team versus I think Jordan Love is better for the future and the long time. Like, right, he has all the intangibles, the arm strength, the athletic ability, the everything you need. Now, when you look at both of these quarterbacks, I know the debate has been, well, Jordan Love threw 2 bad interceptions against the Niners in the playoffs. Okay, I see that. They were one of them was one of the worst throws I've seen in a long time. But are we not going to talk about the Packers dropping 2 pick sixes that would have ended the Niners season in the divisional round? Like not we would have extended everyone if we go back and those interceptions were caught. They would have easily have been returned for pick sixes. Easily. We're looking at Brock Purdy in a much different light. So the fact that we're looking at Jordan Love in one way because of the playoffs, he lost to the Niners. As Niner fans, what we tend to do, and this is Niner fans in general, or I should say fan bases in general, there's homerism, where we're gonna back our player no matter what. I'm not gonna do that with Brock or any player on the team. I'm gonna keep it 100. I'm not gonna sit here and say, "Oh, Brock's better because he's the Niner." No, if I'm taking a quarterback for the long term, I'm taking Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love is the better quarterback. I think he has less talent. He did more with less talent than Brock Purdy. And I think as they continue to grow, it's going to be great for the NFL and the NFC that they have 2 young quarterbacks to battle it out every other year or every so often. Because when we look at it, I think Jordan Love is only going to get better, man. I think Purdy's only going to get better. But if I had to choose, I don't think Brock Purdy will ever win a Super Bowl with the 49ers. I think Jordan Love has a better chance to win a Super Bowl because he has talent that you can't coach. He has stuff that you can't teach. And that's what's winning Super Bowls nowadays. It's not, hey, you need to run a system and do the XYZ. Arm talent, I'm going Jordan Love. IQ, Brock Purdy. Leadership ability, I'm actually going Jordan Love. Leading a young rookie team speaks highly of a young quarterback. So for me, I'm going Jordan Love. Very curious to hear what you have to say regarding these two quarterbacks.
Well, I think it's 2 different questions, right? I think one is, where do you rank them right now? Which for me, I've got Purdy at 10, and I would probably have Love at 11. Like I think they're close. But just because I've seen it a little bit longer from Purdy, I would say I would rank Purdy higher in this moment. But if you're just and again, I want to see it at least for one more year from both of them. Like we have to. We're talking about a season and a half and a season. So we're not talking about a big sample size. This could easily change. But if you're like, hey, you know what? Twisting my arm, absolutely have to come up with who you would prefer long term. I would lean Love. I would lean Love long term. But right now, I would rank Purdy one spot higher in my quarterback rankings because I've seen it a little bit longer than what I've seen with Jordan Love. You've seen a really great half a season from Jordan Love. You've seen a majority of, he's had a couple bad games, but even if you remove those bad games and replace them with the good games from the year prior, you've seen basically a full good season out of Brock. So that's what makes this really hard. But then it's like, okay, well, the weapons, the continuity, there's so many factors that go into it. And you're right. I mean, if the Packers had caught those easy, they were right in their chests. If they would have caught even one of those picks, that game's probably over and the Packers win and the 49ers are sent home and everybody's looking at Brock Purdy like, bro, you literally just threw that game away. You had a pick six. You didn't throw it well at all in the rain. You had the pick six. This was the best team we've had, best chance we've had to win a Super Bowl in the Shanahan era. What the F, dude? Like, he would be looked at completely different if even one of them is caught, let alone both of them. So, yes, the way things actually play out certainly can challenge you. I'll say this. That throw by Jordan Love late was awful, but it really wasn't that throw that lost them the game. The way that I look at it is when you go back and watch that game, it had just started downpouring, like big time downpouring.
Oh, yeah.
The drive before, their kicker had just missed a chip shot. Okay. So you're looking at Jordan Love saying, well, not only, he couldn't just get in field goal range, he had to score a touchdown. So he's looking at it like, I got to make a big play now if we're going to go score. And it's dumping. Like, I got to go score, put this team on my back. So I think a young player was a little impatient in that situation. But really, where the game was lost was the 2 drives prior. He had easy check down options, and he missed both those throws. And I don't necessarily even put it on him. I don't know who it was on, but him and the receivers were clearly on different pages. In both scenarios, one resulted in a pick, the other one resulted in a near pick or an incompletion. Both of those were drive-killing plays that were easily there for first downs. But what happened was the receivers, both times were in a zone. The receiver kept going, and he thought they were going to sit down in the zone. So I don't know who was right or who was wrong in that scenario, but one resulted in a non-conversion. The other one resulted in a non-conversion and a pick. So that's where the game was actually lost. It wasn't that final drive. But I digress. Simple terms is, right now, I've got Purdy ranked one spot higher than I do Love, simply because there's a bigger sample size. But if you're making me take one of these guys for just any franchise that I'm starting today for the next 10 years, I would lean Jordan Love. I also reserve the right to say it's very early in both their careers. I don't know. Like, this might be clearly Jordan Love a year from now. This might be clearly Brock Purdy a year from now. I'm not sure. I don't think we're going to be, actually, I think it's going to be pretty close for the next couple of years before we really fully know. But ultimately, I do think that it is a debatable conversation. People can talk about the stats and everything all they want. Jordan Love looked really good himself the final half of the year. Can he continue that? We're going to see.
I think Jordan Love put on a masterclass against, I know a lot of people are like, oh, Jordan Love didn't play good in the playoffs. Against freaking Dallas, he made Dallas look
fantastic.
stupid.
He's fantastic.
That was one of the best games I've seen from a quarterback in the playoffs. Probably I want to say he had almost a perfect passer rating during that game. And for me, it's one of those ones where if he could continue just to be who he is and not try to be Superman, right? I think that's the issue with young quarterbacks, with young teams, is, again, his defense isn't great. He had a lot of young weapons. So a lot of times what you do is you press. You feel like you have to be the one who gets it done. You have to be the guy who makes the game-winning play. For example, Brock Purdy doesn't have to do that shit. He hasn't one of the top defenses in the league, one. the best weapons in the NFL. So he realistically, Kyle Shanahan allows Brock Purdy to eat. And I know you gave a stat the other day, which in our text message thread, which I think is huge, where you have a quarterback, right? Where if teams stack the box against Jordan Love, he's beating them over the top because he has that kind of talent. When teams play the Niners, they take away the run. They want to stack the box. And the reason teams do that is because they're telling you what they feel about a said quarterback. Love the rivalry between these guys.
Nice.
That
Unintended. Unintended.
Was,
yeah, absolutely.
That was good.
Yeah,
so like when
but to be fair, Jesse, yeah, Brock has never. And sorry, I totally interrupted you, but I just saw this and I had to talk about it. To be fair though, Brock has never been thrown in a situation where he had all young wide receivers, and he was like the guy. He had to be the guy. All those receivers were very young. That was a big reason why Aaron Rodgers wanted to leave. He didn't want to go through the growing pains that he knew was about to happen with that receiving core. And that's why he dipped out. That was a big reason why he dipped out. Love, unfortunately, had to go through the growing pains. The most veteran guy that he really had was Watson, who missed a big chunk of that time. And so all of these guys were coming into their own. There was a bunch of drops. There was miscommunications. He had 2 rookie tight ends as well. His all-pro left tackle missed the whole year. So there was a lot of growing pains that team, not just Love, that team had to go through. And I think Love was a part of that. And then once all of a sudden, hey, they all started to grow together and figure out, hey, this is what I'm capable of in this league. This is what Love's capable of. They really started to click, and then you saw what it could be. We'll see going forward. But, I mean, you're right. And that's why I said, hey, right now I would lean Purdy in this moment because we have seen it more from him. But I think people that just look at the stats from Love, they really, truly don't understand what the hell the Packers were going through that first 9 or so games of the season.
And what's crazy, those first couple of games he played, he was like 6 touchdowns and no interceptions his first 2 games, and people were like, holy cow, like this is pretty impressive, like replacing Aaron Rodgers right away with a high caliber quarterback. Like that was like one of the ones like having to and that's one thing people don't talk about too. Like there has to be extreme added pressure replacing Aaron Rodgers. Like you're replacing a Hall of Fame quarterback who won a Super Bowl. Brock Purdy was replacing Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. Like he had no pressure. He was Mr. Irrelevant. The day he made the roster, all the pressure in the world was no longer on his shoulders. So like it's one of those ones where he won the day he made the roster. So for me, it's a lot of factors that go into it. I think Jordan Love has the ability to be a top 5 quarterback for a very, very long time if he hits his ceiling. Go ahead. You got something to say. You're ready to say something. Fire it off.
No. I was just looking at their age there. I'm looking for it's true. Love is going into season 5, but they're only a year apart, right? Like age wise, they're 1 year apart. So it's not like we're talking about like Love is 28 and Brock's 24. No, they're 25 and 24. That's the great thing. We're going to see this, and I think it is going to be a rivalry for quite some time. I assume both of them are going to get paid by their team, and we're going to get to see it play out. Like it's very, very premature to like really have this talk. I just found it interesting because a lot of people wanted to talk about it. Some people don't think it's debatable, which I think is laughable. But overall, this is a rivalry. This is if these guys are as good as they've shown thus far and they can continue, this can be as fun. I'm not going to put either of them and say that they're top 10 quarterbacks of all time. That would be blasphemous, but this can be as fun as what it was watching Favre and Young go back and forth. If these guys can be predominant top 10 quarterbacks for the next 10 years, this can be a fun rivalry to watch in the NFC. I look forward to it. So
for me, like I was saying, like, so going back to Love could be a top 5. He has the ability, the talent to be a top 5 quarterback, top 7 quarterback year in, year out. Brock, if he has a regression because of talent, he has to rely on so many other things to be in that category year in, year out. So we might not see him. We could see, I think Brock Purdy could be a top 10 quarterback year in, year out. But we're talking top 5, top 7 quarterback from Jordan Love. The ceiling's higher for Jordan Love. I'm taking Jordan Love. And I don't think, for me, I know the debate is there, and I think it's close. But for me, I don't think it's that close. To be honest, I really don't.
This was I hold on. Okay. All right. To be fair, that time was not great because they did beat the brakes off the Niners. I'm just saying from like a football fan standpoint, watching two good quarterbacks go at it year after year is a lot of fun. Hopefully, but also the 49ers got their revenge. I mean, they owned Aaron Rodgers no matter what. So the 49ers did get their payback on Aaron Rodgers. We'll see how this round goes between Love and Purdy. But yes, that time was awful. Brett Favre used to beat the brakes off the 49ers. And yeah, it sucked. It definitely sucked. So I don't know. You don't think it's close though, really?
No, I don't. Truthfully, talent wise and everything like that, I think it's because they're we're so premature in their careers that for me, like, yeah, so their first year, right, was pretty damn awesome. Both of them, first year starting, full season starting, pretty damn great from both of them. So for me, when I'm looking at it, I'm projecting what they could both be, and I don't think it's that close in terms of what Jordan Love can be and what Brock Purdy can be. I think Jordan Love could be one of those top guys versus I don't think Brock Purdy can be one of the top guys in the league. This last year, their seasons were yeah, they were close, but I don't think talent wise they're close.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's switch the conversation then. Love or Stroud?
I'm going Stroud.
Okay. I just wanted to see how high you were on Love. I had to see because
come on now.
Stroud's that deal. Like Stroud to me,
think Stroud's a top 5 quarterback already.
Yeah, well, for me, I think I ranked him at like 7 going into this year. Again, it's still early. You know, I've always been big. I got to see it for 3 years before I'm fully in. But CJ Stroud, what I saw from him, now the way that you're talking about Love, that's the way that I look at Stroud, and I'm like, dude, this guy. I mean, sans Patrick Mahomes, like he might be the best quarterback in the league in 3 or 4 years. Like that's
he's in. No, CJ
crazy.
Stroud.
I mean,
CJ Stroud is deal. Legit.
Yeah. He's a hooper too. Do you see the little highlight of him hooping? He can hoop.
I did. Do you see the video of him getting intercepted in was it China or Japan?
Yeah. I did.
Funny. That was pretty cool. I like that he's doing that though. He's definitely the perfect guy for the NFL to have embrace the entire global industry of NFL football and have him branch it out because he's super humble. He knows how to talk X's and O's without being a dick like other NFL guys. So it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, he's going to be a lot of fun for a long time as well. 49ers Throwback says John Lynch is a top 10 GM in my opinion. This was floating around, so I forget who it was that put the list together, but they didn't have John Lynch in the top 10. Maybe we'll go to that topic next, not this specific part, but maybe why he's not top 10. We'll get into the Chris Sims thing. But you know, I don't know. I think it's close. There's a lot of good GMs in this league, but there's 6 that were on that list that have won rings. So he's definitely not above them. So that means he's fighting for one of the final 4 spots, which makes it tough. Matt says, according to The Athletic, Purdy walked further on water than Jesus. Dazza says Purdy versus Love. Please, there are 49er fans who would take Purdy over Herbert or Stroud, but imagine swapping Purdy with any of those 3 quarterbacks. Yeah, I don't know how it would go with Love. But I do know that the Texans wouldn't have made the playoffs with Purdy. I'm sorry. Brother Bob says bingo. Yeah.
So you're saying, so I just want to clarify what you're saying so I understand. Mm-hmm. You're saying you don't think Brock Purdy on the Texans would have made the playoffs?
No.
But Jordan Love might have.
Yeah, I just, what's hard for me to decipher, Marco, is I do think that team was going through growing pains and he took a big brunt of that. But I think that he was going through growing pains as well. So Stroud came out, I think it was like his first game through like 50 passes, bro. His first game in the NFL. I could be mistaken, but it was like something crazy where it's like, dude, throwing that much as a rookie against the Ravens of all teams was his first game, if I'm not mistaken. And that's insane, dude. That's welcome to the NFL, Rook. You don't have a ton of weapons. You're putting the ball in the air that many times against the best defense in the NFL, it turns out. by a wide margin. They were the best in scoring defense, yards, everything. That was the best defense in the NFL. And that's who he started his career against. But you could see it right away. It was like instant. This dude has something special in game one, even though they lost. So I don't know that Love would have hit the ground running like that. And, one game would have been the difference potentially, because the Jaguars really actually had that division until that final week. Some things shook out in the Texans' favor, and they ended up going. So I don't know. I don't know that Love would have either, to be real with you. I don't know that I can make that claim. I do know that CJ Stroud did do it, though.
Okay, so I'm gonna change it up a little bit on you.
Okay.
So put Brock Purdy on the Packers, Jordan Love on the Packers. Do we have the same outcomes for the season? Do the Packers make the playoffs, and do the 49ers go to the Super Bowl, and do they lose in the Super Bowl, or does outcomes change in terms of, because the same system, right? Same Kyle Shanahan system. You're just swapping the quarterbacks on those teams. So Purdy wouldn't have a good defense, and he wouldn't have the great weapons he has in San Francisco.
Okay, so I think both can be true. I don't think that the Packers would have made the playoffs if Purdy was their quarterback. I don't know that the 49ers would have made the Super Bowl with Love, though, either. And let me say why. A big part of why Love flourished in the second half of the season was because his coach allowed him to start calling audibles at the line. And Shanahan doesn't allow that. And so I don't know that Love, like if Love was confined to doing just what Shanahan asked, I don't know that he would have produced, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
I think Purdy might have done better with the 49ers than Love did, but also Love would have done better with the Packers than Purdy did, which is an interesting perspective, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
And I totally get what you're saying, because the ability to change things at the line of scrimmage and do what you want to do is huge for the Packers. That's growth from a coach who didn't want Aaron Rodgers to do that, right? He didn't.
Yeah.
He saw and he's like, you know what? Run my offense. Rodgers like, no, your offense doesn't work with me right now. And versus Kyle, he doesn't allow that. And I think that's something that needs to change. So that's interesting that you do say that, because I do agree. I think the Packers wouldn't have made the playoffs. I think we wouldn't have gotten to the Super Bowl because of other reasons. I think the fact that Jordan Love's always looking for home run balls and stuff like that, Kyle would have been pissed off. Kyle would have been like, dude, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, most certainly. It is interesting though. It's tough to do this. I mean, again, to me, it's like they're just, but also I would say this, like there's certain teams that, based off of what we've seen from Purdy and his inability to be successful in any sort of inclement weather, he couldn't play in Green Bay long term unless this is like a fluke. But right now, like in all three circumstances, bro, it hasn't looked good in any of them. So, like he couldn't play in Green Bay, he couldn't play in Buffalo. So this factors in when you look at it and you say, okay, I got a guy who I know that his game can travel to any weather. If you put him in a dome, obviously it would be great. If you put him here, it would be great. If you put him in cold weather, it's going to be fine. Brock Purdy hasn't proven that yet. Now, he may over time, maybe this is just like this weird hiccup and a mental thing, and he's able to get through it. It's certainly not a hand size thing. He's got the same hand size as Patrick Mahomes, but right now, if you said that Brock Purdy has to play his career in New England or Buffalo or Philly, Green Bay, Cleveland, absolutely not, man. Absolutely not. There is no way that his game translates in that weather right now. It wouldn't be good. So something has to change there as well.
You know what that sounds like to me, Jesse? But it's a conversation for a different day.
What's that?
He's not a $50 million or $60 million quarterback to me. I mean,
oh well, I've been
that's
saying that. Yeah.
If we truly want to get into like the deep conversations of like Brock Purdy and stuff like that, that's why I hope the Niners pass the ball a lot more. But I'll let you keep going to the super chats, or else we'll be on this conversation for hours.
We could be. Brother Bob says, bingo, homerism galore. So many fans equal homers. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like to I don't want to police how people fan. You know what I mean? Like everybody can fan how they want to fan. I I'm not going to stop him. I think it's a little weird when people get like genuinely upset about how other people can be critical of the team or critical of players. But I'm not going to tell people how to fan. That's certainly not going to happen. Dang it. I just lost a super chat. I clicked on it and then it went away. I'm trying to remember what it said. It said, God,
But
I
what
had
you think?
just briefly read it.
You
Yeah,
can
go ahead.
scroll up real quick and find it, and I'll talk real
I'm
quick
trying.
about the homerism.
Yeah.
For me, it's not every fan base has homerism, right? Like homerism is the
Oh, I
part
remember.
of that's why it's called fanatics, right?
Mhm.
But it's when you have conversations and debates where if you can't step back and look at like, hey, Debo Samuel or George Kittle, Travis Kelce, and you can't sit back and have a genuine conversation about it. And it's like, no matter what, like George Kittle's the best tight end in the NFL. Like if it's like that, or like other fan bases like Travis, like Kansas City fans are just straight, there's no conversation. Travis Kelce's the best tight end in the league. Then that's just like, all right, that's just pure homerism. Like it's not having a valid debate or a conversation because you're coming in with just pure the mindset of a fan base. And like I think that's for me where I'm like, hey, you know what? If you're gonna talk sports, then you got to be critical of your own team. You have to be able to debate with the open mindedly. So that's where I was. I wasn't trying to say like, oh, don't be a homer. Like, hey, when it comes to Niner games, game day, I'm
Oh,
probably the
game day.
biggest homer. I'm
Listen,
the
yeah.
biggest homer you can find. Like,
Yeah.
we're down 30 points, and I'm sitting there like telling my
Yeah.
family we're gonna come back. Like,
Yeah.
come on, we're down 30 points. What do you think realistically? You're down
No.
30. You're not coming back.
Listen, bro, I get it. And yes, you're right. You're right. When the games are on, that's when it's time to be a homer. But that's to me, like I've said this a million times, but that's your only obligation as a fan is on to when the game's going on, regardless of what you think of any of the players, the front office, any of that. Your job as a fan is to root for every player as if they're your favorite player. That's your job. Once the game's over, however, or leading up to the game, you can fan however you want. If you want to be like me, where you feel like you look at things objectively and you think there are plenty of players across the league at all sorts of positions that are better players, there are teams that are possibly better than your team, then do that. If you want to be a homer all the time and it's like, oh, my guy's the best guy no matter what because he wears red and gold, then do that as well. But if you want to have a real conversation, I guess my thing is if that's the fan you're going to be, that's fine. I don't want to take that from anybody. I'm not going to gatekeep your fandom, but don't then jump into these debates and act like you're being an honest broker because you're not. Like you're coming in with a set mind that your guy's the best because he wears your uniform. And then you're the same guy that's like, oh, as soon as he's off the team, I hate him. So don't you can't jump into these debates and come with a real honest opinion because you're not being objective. So that's where I would say is like that's where you just got to kind of steer clear of those debates because you're not going to be an honest broker. But outside of that, like how you want to fan, dude, fan however you want, man. You spend your hard-earned time, money, whatever. Do it the way that you want to do it. I'm not gatekeeping nobody. I remember the question. I don't remember who asked it, but somebody asked, how can Brock Purdy improve? Well, one, we talked about the weather thing. That's certainly it. I think just time in a system. I mean, we're still talking about a player who's only been in the system for 2 years. This is his first full off season. I just think things naturally, you get more familiar. You can recall things quicker. So I think all those things, but really one of the biggest things, and I think a lot of people disagree with me on this because you got a high completion percentage, ball placement. His pure accuracy is probably middle of the road, if I'm being honest with you. Ball placement he needs to work on. It's not about just completing the pass. It's about putting it in the perfect spot as often as possible. That's where I saw a guy like CJ Stroud really excel in college. And that's why I was like, listen, this guy's going to be the real deal at the NFL. And he has been thus far. Brock Purdy, that's an area a lot of people want to compare him to Drew Brees, and that's great. But Drew Brees is the most accurate passer of all time from a ball placement perspective, not just a completion percentage perspective. Brock Purdy has to improve at his ball placement on a consistent basis. And I think he can do that.
Well, that was Eric Dane's question. Shout out to Eric Dane. Jesse,
Was
don't
it
want to give
Eric?
you Eric.
Okay.
Eric,
I
I
didn't
got
know.
you.
I couldn't
I
see. I
got you,
couldn't
Eric.
see who it was.
I'll
I'm
keep
sorry.
Jesse
I just
accountable
remember
for
the
you.
question. I love
So
Eric,
shout
and
out
he
to
knows that.
so shout out to Eric. But no, like the way he can get better arm strength wise, like I think arm strength can get better, and I think
Mhm.
that's recovering from his UCL injury and everything like that. We're gonna
That's
see
right.
his arm strength get better. I want to see him use his legs a little bit more often in certain situations rather than trying to be Superman. Like you could pick up 4 or 5 yards. Like that's a successful play. Like you don't have to throw into double coverage and stuff like that where he feels he's great at. I do want to see him avoid sacks a little bit more often. What I mean by that is there's too many times where, and it happened last year, he got much better at it this year, stepping into the pocket, but stepping into pressure. Like he doesn't understand like when Colton McKivitz is actually winning. I know it's kind of weird that he actually wins a rep or two,
It's rare.
but when he's actually winning, you don't have to just step up into the pocket because your time clock. Like you could feel the pressure. And I think that's one of the areas I think he could continue to improve, making your offensive lineman better. So there's just a couple of things that how he can improve.
Yeah, and we did see a major improvement there last year for sure, as far as like stepping up in the pocket because he feels the pressure well. But when he felt the pressure his rookie year, it was like he felt it and he was gone. He was bailing. This year, he felt it and he was stepping up, which is a major improvement. But you almost felt like he went from one extreme to the other, where it was like, I'm constantly on the run. Now I'm constantly stepping up. It's like, okay, you got to find that mix because
Mhm.
there is that aspect to your game that can be special. You've got that short area quickness that most guys don't have, even guys that are very, very fast in straight line speeds. He's got that short area quickness. So you got to know when, okay, I should step up here and continue to look downfield and also bail. And it seems like it was interesting because I remember the first game of the season I was at, the Steeler game, he kept bailing again. I'm like, man, this guy didn't learn. Like that's not good. And then that was it. Like that was like the end of bailing for most of the season. And he started to step up. I'm like, okay, that's great. And then after 4 or 5 games, I'm like, okay, but you can run again. Like it's okay to do that. So he really has to just figure out. And that again, that kind of goes back to what I'm talking about, which is just time in the game and time in the system to know when to take off, when to step up. But the fact that he did step up last year and he wasn't doing that the year prior, I think that was a major, major thing. So now we've seen he can do both. It's just about picking and choosing your spots a little bit better. Matt says difference between 49ers and Green Bay is Green Bay hasn't come close to their offensive ceiling. 49ers probably have. Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. I think that's a very fair thing to say. Cryptic says, what do you think the NFC has over the AFC, if any? AFC has elite passing in Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, MVP Jackson. Does the NFC have any advantages? I,
Man.
I would say the biggest advantages is that you don't have to go through the gauntlet to get to the Super Bowl, maybe that those AFC teams do, to where it's like just to get out of the AFC, you got to fight through everything. And maybe when you get to the Super Bowl, it's like, man, you're a little bit beat up. And we actually did see that with the Chiefs last year. They were down multiple players on that defensive line as a result of it. They really had to play some tough football in cold weather. Their game traveled well, but they came away with a lot of injuries. In fact, they had 3 injuries in the trenches, 2 on the defensive line, 1 on the offensive line, just making it to the Super Bowl, which is another reason why it was so damn frustrating the 49ers couldn't pull it off because, man, we're talking about really good players they were missing on both sides of the line of scrimmage, and the 49ers just couldn't. I don't know. So I would say that's an advantage. They don't have to go through the gauntlet as much, which means hopefully they come out healthier. But that's really it. I mean, that's kind of like a nice way of saying, like, what's your weakness in an interview? And you respond, oh, I mean, really all my weaknesses are strengths. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. It's I don't honestly I can't think of any advantage that the NFC has outside of not having to play those top quarterbacks. Like, I mean, I guess for the Niners, an advantage is every team is pretty young, and you're the veteran team, you're the mature team, so you should have that advantage. You have the playoff experience. I guess that, but I can't think of any advantages right now.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's tough to even win like the AFC North. That's a gauntlet. Daza says, if you were a team's GM, would you need to feel comfortable paying a quarterback 50? What would you need to feel comfortable? I think that I would say most quarterbacks that you draft, you really got to see you got to see it through to that. Hopefully, you picked him up in round one and you have a fifth year option. I think you probably know by then, unless it's Jordan Love and he didn't play. But you usually have more of a sense. But man, a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a lot. Like, because let's go through it real quick. Hurts. I wouldn't have been comfortable giving him a big contract. He had one good year.
No.
I wouldn't have been comfortable. I also wouldn't have been comfortable with Love either. I love what they did with Love. Love what they did with Love. But I enjoyed what they did with Love, where it was like, hey, we're not going to pick up your fifth year option, but we're going to give you, depending on how you play, you can make more than that, but you can also make less than that. We're going to make you prove it. So I think that was smart. I wouldn't have been comfortable paying Love. Right now, if you told me I had to make a decision on Lawrence, I wouldn't feel comfortable on Lawrence. So this isn't just, by the way, again, people look at this, are like, you're a Brock Purdy hater. Look, what more does he need to do? A lot. This is not a standard for just Brock Purdy. This is me looking at quarterbacks across the league saying there's a lot of quarterbacks that I wouldn't have been comfortable. Like, really, the only quarterbacks in recent history that I for sure would have been comfortable paying would have been Mahomes, Herbert, because he came out right away. Mahomes did it in year 2 and was setting records. Herbert set the rookie record before Stroud. And then, so Mahomes, Herbert, even Allen was a little bit dicey, just being real. I mean, I loved Allen coming out of the draft. So, because of that, maybe I would have been a little more comfortable, but even that was a little dicey. So I don't know. I mean, it takes a lot for me. It would take a lot for me to feel comfortable. I'll say this.
Would you have paid Dak?
Your option? No.
Same.
No, I wouldn't.
Great team. Everything around him was perfect. Everything around him was perfect. When things start to go wrong or your defense regresses and everything else becomes less, how does that quarterback respond? Can that quarterback lead a team without having anything? And I think that's, for me, what you're talking about. Some of these teams, the quarterbacks, they came in day one and they made their team much, much better. So that's, for me, what, like, the start one, where it has to be.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be in the special of the special, where it's like you clearly weren't on the best team. You clearly made a gigantic difference, and you did it 4 years in a row. Now I'm comfortable, right? Like, it's not easy to do those things. So there's a lot of quarterbacks. It's not just a Brock Purdy thing. It would take a lot. But this is a great question.
For me, it's at least 2.5, 3 years, because if you don't get, for example, if you get a quarterback and he's not a first round draft pick, that time clock, it comes faster. Like, you have to see it within that first 2 to 3 years, because that after year 3, that quarterback saying, I'm not playing for pennies, you have to pay me. For example, I know you said Josh Allen, maybe. I would have paid Josh Allen for sure. I mean, his third year was 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, but year 2, he showed drastic improvement from year 1, and he was starting to carry that team. He was being that guy where a lot of weight on offense was on his shoulders. Didn't have great weapons until they started trading for guys and signing guys, and a lot of it was being him, being the truck pulling the trailer of an offense. So for me, I would have done the Josh Allen one.
Well, listen, and also I think a lot of it does depend on how you felt about them coming out of the draft. Like, I thought Josh Allen was the clear best quarterback in that draft at the time, and I thought he would be elite in the NFL. So if I saw 2 really good years from him, I'd probably be like, okay, I believe that. You know what I mean? CJ Stroud's the same way. Like, I believed coming out he would be elite, to where I didn't believe in, let's say, Baker Mayfield, for example, right? So Baker Mayfield didn't believe in. He started his career out very hot with the Browns, and then it started to backslide a little bit. But you could make excuses as to why that would be. But because I didn't like him coming out of college, I certainly wouldn't have felt comfortable paying him, even though he showed that he could be good at times as well. So I think that there's a lot that goes into it. It's like, hey, what did you think coming out of college? And then what did you see over the course of those 4 years? you got to really weigh both of those. I think both those things are important. So
absolutely. Shout out to Renardo Green, Jacob Cowing, and Isaac Garendo, who all signed their 4-year contracts with the Niners as we've been live. So that's pretty cool to
getting them done early. Now let's get Brandon Ayuk signed. That'd be great. But then there's a guy like Lawrence, who I did like a lot coming out of college, right? But he hasn't performed at a level to where I would feel comfortable now. So, that it can go both ways where, yeah, I liked him a lot coming out of college, but he hasn't performed at anywhere near the level that I would expect. So I wouldn't feel comfortable in this moment paying him big time. We'll see. This year's a make or break year for Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion. It really is. Really is. And I am also aware that last year, statistically, it may not look great, but there were a ton of drops in the red zone and in the end zone specifically. But I still haven't seen enough to where I'm like, yes, bona fide, got to pay this guy. I've got to see more from Trevor Lawrence as well. Jesse says homerism is as real as haterism. Where's the line? I don't know. I think people look at criticism as hate. Like, again, I can only go off of what I hear, Jesse. I'm labeled as a Brock Purdy hater, right? But the reality of the situation is I was the first guy in the community talking about Brock Purdy. I was, by a wide margin, actually. I've got tweets dating back to December 2020 talking about Brock Purdy. Right. And I had a 3rd round grade on Brock Purdy, and I celebrated on this channel. It's still up there. You can go check it out. I celebrated on this channel when they picked him. But now, because I won't acquiesce to him being a bona fide, gotta pay him elite quarterback, all of a sudden I hate Brock Purdy. So it's like, I think the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Like, that's the way I'm viewed now. And that's fine. I don't care. I mean, I know where I stand. I know how I feel about it. I like Brock Purdy. I just don't think he's elite. And I think both those things can play at the same playground. But, over time, because of that, and because I was a big Trey Lance guy, I'm viewed as a hater. But really, I was the first guy on Brock too. You know what I mean? But nobody remembers that. Nobody talks about that. So I don't know. I think it comes down to what you think it is, I guess. All right, let's go to this one, because this came up in a super chat. Somebody said that they think that John Lynch is a top 10 GM or executive in this league. He was not ranked in the top 10. Do you know who put that list together, Marco? Do you remember?
I don't. I'll pull it up right now.
It doesn't matter. Either way, he wasn't ranked as a top 10 general manager. The reason for that, and that wasn't the full topic, or that was actually not any of this topic, but I want to answer a previous question that came up in a super chat where somebody said that they feel like he is top 10. I think the reason he's not top 10, or potentially could be perceived as not top 10, first of all, there's multiple guys that are there that have won rings that are in a standing position. So you got to put them above him. I think there's about 6 or so guys that are in that situation. So you got to put them above him. So to get into the top 10, he's got to be one of the final 4. Well, for a reason, like Chris Sims coming out yesterday on his podcast and saying, do you think Ricky Pearsall was really a John Lynch pick? It absolutely was not. It was a Shanahan pick. And if you think that Shanahan's not running the show and isn't the final decision maker on every single one of these things, then I can't break it down for you any easier. Like, he is, bar none, absolutely the final decision maker on all of these things. So can you be rated a top 10 GM if you don't even run the show, man? Your coach is the one running the show. For me, this validated a lot because I'd been talking about this. I remember going back to their first press conference with the team. John Lynch basically said this in the press conference that, hey, you know what? I make the 90-man roster. Shanahan's responsible for the 53. Then somebody asked a follow-up question. He goes, well, Shanahan contractually also is a part of the 90-man roster. I'm like, okay, so Shanahan's actually running the show. Andy hired you. Shanahan's the guy. So this was like validation of that. But for his best friend to come out and say, like, yeah, Shanahan's the reason that Pearsall's here, and Shanahan is the guy that ultimately has the end all be all with this team. Wasn't surprising to me as much, I think, as it was to some people, but now the cat's out of the bag. Like, what do you think about hearing this, Marco? What are your thoughts?
I think it's interesting because when you look at the list, there's an argument for him to be on that list from that Pro Football Network put out. Because like you have guys who haven't won anything or their teams aren't consistently winning. For example, you had Brad Holmes in there. He barely been a GM for a couple of years. Brian Gutengus from Green Bay, Mike Brown, Duke Tobin with the Bengals. So it's like there's a couple of guys where you could make the argument, but the moment Chris Sims came out yesterday and said that and verified with what we've all been saying that Kyle runs the show, Kyle is the GM. I'm going to go further, man. I think there's a different GM. I don't think it's Kyle Shanahan. I think his name starts with Mike and it ends with Shanahan. I think Mike Shanahan is the true GM for the 49ers. I think he's the one who does a lot of scouting. That's why he has the office there. He's doing his son a favor. This is who you should draft. These players fit my system that I ran, the system that you now run. I think Mike Shanahan has a lot of say into it. And I think that's why where it's Kyle is the one who's making these picks, XYZ. But at some point, John Lynch is going to have to do something, man. Like, if you really want to be respected around the league, if that's what the narrative is around the league, you either got to go somewhere else or you have to be a guy that's truly drafting and building the roster because you're never going to have that with Kyle Shanahan. Truthfully, you never will.
I think that this is why Adam Peters wanted to leave as well, because from everything I understand, Shanahan specifically really liked Adam Peters, and money wasn't an issue. They would have paid him whatever he was going to get as a GM to stay here. They really wanted him to be here and eventually probably be that GM, but he was always going to have to acquiesce to Shanahan no matter what. So no matter what, it was never going to be his vision. It was never going to be his team. It was always going to be Shanahan, always. And that is always going to be the perception here. So he wanted to get out of that shadow, and that's why he left and went to Washington and took that job, in my opinion. That being said, Lynch is also in that same boat a little bit. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that they have a decent working relationship. They certainly did in the beginning. You know, they were excited to work together for sure, but Shanahan's absolutely the guy. He's always been the guy. He's always going to be the guy as long as he's here. And so I think that there's credit that comes with that, a lot of credit that should come with that. But there's also a lot of things that you can look at and you can scrutinize because of that. But to put an executive in the top 10 that's not even technically the guy, that's tough to do. Right? Like, that's really, really tough to do. So I don't know. I don't know that I would have put him top 10 either.
Yeah, I would mean it's a debate. Like, it's up there. I could see the argument for him being in the top 10. Because he has, I mean, technically, if that's your title, I guess you get credit for that being the title, but I don't see him being that true executive. And yet, someone had a comment, it was like regarding Mike Shanahan has an office in the building. Yes, that has been public, actually, that he has an office in the building with the Niners.
That Mike Shanahan does?
That Mike.
Oh.
I mean, it's for when he comes and visits Kyle, he has his own office. That's and it's been public.
Yeah. I knew that. No. You're right. I did know that. I'm not. But Kyle also says that he sends him film. Like, this isn't like.
Yeah, it's not.
News.
It's not. Yeah.
Okay, here's a question, and then we'll never know the answer to this. Do you think Mike has more say so than John Lynch?
I mean, technically, yeah, right?
Not Kyle. I mean, Mike. Like Mike.
Yeah, technically, yeah. Because if Mike's telling his son Ricky Pearsall is a can't miss prospect, or if he's telling him XY this player is the dude, you think Kyle's not going to take his dad's advice? And you think Kyle's not going to put this in his? Remember, Kyle falls in love with players, right? Kyle's going to fall in love with this player because his dad is putting this in his head, and he's going to, you know what? I need to draft that guy. So he kind of does.
That's
You don't
not
think so?
good.
Or
No,
you
I'm not.
already
No, I listen. I no, I don't not
so
think so. That's
for
that's
example,
why
if
the
you're
big deep breath came. It's like, oh, you might be right.
like if his dad's telling if he's getting this film and he's doing a lot for him, and his dad's telling him, "Hey, this player's really, really good. You might want to take a look at him." Hey, John, sorry, but Pop said this dude's legit and I should draft him. I'm not saying that he did this with Pearsall or he did this with XY player. I'm just saying if his dad wanted to influence the draft, he could by putting this in Kyle's head and say, "Hey, this player is the dude you need to take. He fits your system. He fits what you guys need." And Kyle Shanahan's going to take his dad's word. He's going to watch the film. It's probably going to be a player who's pretty good, and he's going to take it and he's going to run with it.
Oh man, that's discouraging. I don't. And listen, I'm not trying to like cause anything. I don't know that to be true, but you can see a path, right, where Mike does have more like say so as far as like what happens. Didn't they want to initially, weren't they looking at Mike like a year prior, if I'm not mistaken, before they hired Kyle? Like when they brought in who was the last coach they had? Was it Chip or was it Tom Zula? I can't remember.
Chip Kelly, I believe.
Was it Chip before Tom? Either way, I think they were looking to hire Mike at that time. They had reached out to Mike and Mike turned down the job, if I'm not mistaken. So they actually looked at Mike and then his son caught fire with the Falcons and then became the guy. But I'm sure that was a part of the discussion where it was like, hey, you're kind of getting a 2-for-1 here. Like my dad's not going to coach, but like he's going to be a part of it. Did he interview?
No,
Maybe he
did
did.
interview. No, he did. I looked it up right now. He did interview, and it was Purdy and Rappaport. Former 49ers head coach Mike Shanahan interviewed with 49ers vacancy. This article is 2015, so right before they hired Chip or the guy before Kyle.
Yeah. I mean, could that when in 2015? Sorry.
It was the article came out. It says the article was written in 2015. So
Do you know when in 2015? Does it have a day or does it say
January 2nd to be exact?
Okay, so early 2015. So that would have been, then they went Tom Zula, then they went to Chip, I think. So it was a couple years before Kyle. So yeah, he was. So he was in the mix. He was definitely in the mix for that job. So I'm sure they didn't have an issue with him being a part of this team or continuing to be a part of this team. Like they wanted him as a head coach potentially. So yeah, he might. I mean, he might have a big say. That's crazy, bro.
They should have just made him the GM, to be honest with you, at that point. Like,
yeah, right. I mean, that's like, I don't know.
The GM that I thought was going to be hired was Louis Riddick.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay. I want to do this real quick because I've never done this on a live show and I think it'll be funny. Doing this one time and one time only. You guys make sure that you guys let me know if we can hear this. Oops. Here we go. Entire screen. There we go. Okay, it's very small. I apologize. I can't make it bigger because it was a screen grab and then a tweet, but hopefully you guys can hear everything. So it's a three quick part video under a minute. It's like 37 seconds total. But this is like everything that goes into me talking about Purdy well before everybody, just so we're clear. Can you guys hear that? Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear that. You can't?
No.
Okay, so then they probably can't hear it. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. Can you guys hear that? No? No? Could you guys not hear it? Negative Ghost Rider.
Sorry, guys. He's a grandpa when it comes to technology. So
I know. Listen, shut your mouth. All right. Goodness sakes.
My apologies.
Gosh, hold on a second.
Get it together, Grandpa. That's why he says he's only doing it one time and one time only.
Because I can't figure it out. Oh, that's too funny, bro. Hold on a second. Let's see this. Present. Okay. Also share tab audio. Oh, okay. Let's try it this way. Okay. Hopefully you guys, I don't know if you can hear this or not. Let me know. Let me know in the chat.
He's been playing well, bro.
Can you hear that, Marco? All right, perfect. See, I figured it out. Okay, so this was my old co-host. He did the Lions stuff. This was right after Brock Purdy had started playing, and he's talking to his co-host about Brock Purdy. But that's the first part, and then it goes into other things.
He's been playing well, bro. He has. I'm gonna give him his credit. Shout out to my guy Naylor. He texted me though. Hey, a quarterback y'all should target late is Brock Purdy. I'll screenshot you the text. I'm like, Brock Purdy. I'm like, okay. He's like, yeah, man, it's this kid. I think is he out of Iowa State?
Iowa State
somewhere. Yeah. He's like, it's a kid out of Iowa State, man. Like, y'all should target a quarterback named Brock Purdy. Because after the draft, we talked about like, hey, you got the quarterback that you told us to get. He's like, yeah, I know.
That's sweet.
He told me about Brock Purdy.
He's holding his own, man. He's
holding. He be hitting on quarterbacks.
You hear that? He been hitting on quarterbacks. He knows. All right, this is me. March of 2021 on Grant Cohn Show. March of 2021. Been looked into it. I mean, there's a couple guys that I know that didn't come out this year that I like. Brock Purdy, let's say. Well, hold on. Let's run that one back. Couple guys that didn't come out this year that I like. Brock Purdy, let's say. I just want to make sure that we all
after the draft, we talked about like, hey, you got the quarterback that you told us to get. He's like, yeah, I know.
That's sweet.
He told me about Brock Purdy.
He's holding his own, man.
He be hitting on quarterbacks.
Been looked into it. I mean, there's a couple guys that I know that didn't come out this year that I like. Brock Purdy, let's say. And opposite of Bosa, I think that is huge. And this is me 2 days after the draft. It looks like May 4th. This is in May 4th, 2022. So after they had drafted him, this is me and my co-host.
Dan, my guy, you've heard me talk about this man for almost 2 full years.
Brock Purdy?
Purdy. You know I love me some Brock Purdy. Yeah.
Okay, so
how much did you pay him? How much did you pay him to say that for you?
Bro, it was a lot of money. I knew that 3 years later that he would be starting and that I would be labeled a hater. You know what it was? It was a lot like how Drake set up Kendrick for the rap battle.
Damn.
Same thing. Bro, I was playing 3D chess. I knew this was all going to happen. So anyways, you know, like find somebody that was on it earlier than that and we can talk. But I'm pretty sure.
Hey, that's pretty early. That's
sure that I was one of the first.
That's pretty early.
That's what I'm saying. Dink Tank says, no, I think it's because you were in Grant's camp with Ryan and Jesse. Ryan and Lance is him 100%. Okay, so let's clear that up as well. During that same show where you heard me talk about Brock Purdy, it was either that show or one of the ones prior. I was like, man, the 49ers draft Trey Lance. Like, it could be like the worst disaster, but it could also be like the best masterpiece Shanahan's put together. I was the one, like, I brought Lance to Grant. Like, Grant fell in love with him, but I also brought Lance to Grant and was like hyping him up. So if anything, like, blame me for getting Grant so onto Lance, because I was the one that brought him on to Lance as well, because he actually was more against it than I was. And then over time, I started watching film. Like, I don't know, dude, this Lance guy, I really like him a lot. And then he kind of got on board as well. So blame me for Grant's love for Lance, I would say. I know it didn't.
The fact that you did that is Grant was also big on Jordan Love, because I had texted him like, dude, when I was writing for him at the time, I was like, dude, the Niners got to draft Jordan Love. He started watching him and he was like, dude, I see the vision. I see the vision. So it's funny that like it's one of those ones where like you tell people about someone, they go and watch them for themselves, and like it's pretty cool to see.
Jesse says that comment. I know it wasn't about me. I just wanted to kind of put myself in the shoe of like what a hater is, because I just don't know like what the line is. You know what I mean? And so I can only look at it like from my aspect. And so that's why I did that. But I know you weren't talking about me, Jesse. Nicholas says, do you think it keeps Larry up at night saying you were no, because first of all, Larry admits that he wasn't big on him in the draft. Now, Larry hit though too, right? Like Larry hit on the second half of that, which I did not hit on. Once he was drafted, I liked Purdy and I liked Lance, but I liked Lance more. Larry liked them both as well, but he did say that first training camp that he felt the next year that Purdy would be competing for a starting job on the team. So Larry hit too. Like he hit in a different way. He hit once he was in the NFL. Coming out of college, he didn't like him. Like as a scout, he said that he thought he had a weak arm and he was undersized and he threw the ball up too much for grabs. He was not a fan of him. But once he saw him in person, Larry was on it. So I'm not taking anything away from Larry. I just know that I'm sure there were people that were on it as early as me. I don't know that any of them were the content creators, though. So somebody would have to show that one to me. PDX Niner says that speculation is a bit rich for me. Need proof. What speculation?
I think he's talking about the Mike Shanahan having say or Mike Shanahan having.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, it's what. Listen,
No, it's just
100% speculation. 100% speculation. So, what did he say? Amazing beard growth for the stage video.
I agree. It's staged.
It's
This is AI. That's AI, bro.
AI, bro. It's AI, bro. Do you have time for one more or do you gotta go? We've been going for an hour and a half.
I'm done.
Okay. All right. So one more thing, because I found this interesting. This was on Golick's show. So it was Mike Golick and his son. And I forget who it was that was on there, but he had made like a flippant comment about the schedule and that he basically said like, who cares about the schedule release? It's like, you're going to play your opponents. Who cares? You play them. You know, you're going to play them. Nothing changes with the schedule release. I vehemently disagree with this. Are you in that same camp as him where it's like, hey, the opponents are the opponents, who cares where it's situated? Or do you feel like, hey, there is something to how or when you play these teams? Are you coming off a bye? Are they coming off a bye? Are you traveling after playing at home? Like, do you feel like that plays anything into it? Or are you with him like, hey, the opponents are the opponents, like nothing changes when the actual schedule is released?
No, yeah, definitely. The schedule definitely matters, man. One,
Bro,
when he was like,
right?
no one cares about it. One, the players and their families care about it, like for sure, like because they need to know when to have their families around. But even then, are you traveling across to the East Coast every other week? Are you playing? If we play, for example, when we play the Chiefs, are we playing the Chiefs and they're coming off a bye week where they get healthy and we're banged up? We're coming off a short week. Like certain things, like it plays a big factor on when you're playing teams. Because I know people look at it. What year was it when we went through that gauntlet and we were like 9-0, the 2019 season? We're like, oh, everyone was looking at it like, damn, this is gonna be a tough stretch. If the Niners can make it out like with 2 wins, 3 wins out of the 6 games, they'll be great. They ended up winning most of those. I believe they won every game of that gauntlet. So it's like looking at the way the schedule is set up, it matters a lot. Are the Niners in London next year? That plays a huge factor. People understand when you're traveling and you get injured, for example, if you have swelling, that swelling is not going down until you land in Santa Clara and they're able to work on your injury, because that elevation, it makes your knee, whatever, ankle swell up again. So it does matter. Like people, when they say that, okay, like of course you're going to lace them up with X team, whatever day it's going to be, whenever it's going to be. That's true. You're going to lace them up no matter what. But there's definitely a big factor in terms of when you play someone and where.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. In fact, I think last year when I just went through the opponents, I had them at 13-4. And then when the schedule came out, I switched it to 12-5. And I remember I think it was not last year, the year prior. Was it the year? No. 3 years ago. It was when they played Tennessee on a short week, like right before like Thanksgiving or Christmas or something. It was towards the tail end of the year. They were playing Tennessee on short notice. And I remember when that game came out, I was like, I initially had them beating Tennessee, but the way that game fell, I was like, that's a scheduled loss. Like, there's no way. Tennessee was coming off of like a long rest. They didn't have to travel. The 49ers had just played at home, I think, and then had to travel to Tennessee to play on Thursday Night Football. That game ended up being a really good game, but they did lose that game. Like that, sometimes scheduled losses happen based off of just tough opponent. You're in a bad situation. Now that doesn't guarantee a loss, but you feel like, oh, dude, this is not going in their favor. Like if the 49ers play Buffalo in December versus September, I'll probably have two different predictions. If they're going to play them in December, I'm probably going to pick Buffalo at least prior to the season. Once we get there, I may have a different opinion because injuries have happened and, maybe, the 49ers don't look as good or Buffalo doesn't look as good or what have you. But if it's in December, early on, I'll pick Buffalo to win that game. But if it's in September, I'm going to pick the 49ers. So to me, the schedule absolutely matters. When these teams play, what do the bye weeks look like? Do you have an early bye versus a late bye? Those things are always very important as well. So yeah, I mean, to me, like I said, last year I had them 13-4, and then once the schedule dropped, I bumped that down to 12-5 because of the way things were scheduled out. So I think they matter. I don't know where this guy was coming from. That was crazy.
No, yeah, like for example, we could take a look at Niners' schedule last year, right? They fell 3 straight games. Their bye week came at the perfect time. Like, who knows how many games they would have kept falling if something changes at the quarterback position, if they fell another game, if they didn't have the bye week, I believe it was week 9. Well, if you don't have the bye week there, you play Jacksonville, who was actually playing really good football before the Niners whooped on them. But if you play them week 9 instead of week 10, if Jacksonville beats you, a lot of things happen. Like, because you just lost 4 straight. Does Sam Darnold come in? Like, those are the things where the schedule does matter, or how it falls. The schedule at the end of the day doesn't matter in terms of who you're playing, because you know who you're playing already. I think that may have been what he's talking about. Like, hey, you know who you're playing. It doesn't matter when you play him. You're gonna either win or lose no matter what. But like you're saying, with Brock Purdy, it does factor into where you're playing certain teams, and if it's late December or that time period. But it's crazy. Trey Lance is catching so many strays in the chat, and it's his birthday. Y'all can't even say happy birthday to the guy. Jeez.
Is it really his birthday?
Yeah, it's really his birthday. Jeez.
That's funny. Yeah, see, this is it, right? Klarzard, like playing Buffalo or Green Bay in December that'd be a nightmare, bro. Like nobody wants that. You know what I mean? So I look forward to the schedule. I think it's a lot of fun. And like I said, it's interesting because I did have them 12-5, but as the season went, I genuinely picked them the week of the game every single time to win. The only time that I picked them that my head actually said that you shouldn't pick them, but I did anyways, was the Super Bowl. Honestly, that was the only time where I was like, you know what? I don't think they're going to win this game, but I'm going to pick them anyways because I picked them all year. You know what I mean? So, But other than that, like I had really felt leading up to those games that they were going to win those games. And, you're obviously not going to win every game, but I felt in that moment they were. So, even a preseason schedule prediction versus like how you feel week of, everything can change. Everything can change. Chris says, I don't think you're hating. I just don't think you factor in quarterback confidence, intelligence, calmness, poise. But Chris, I do, because that's why I had him as a 3rd round talent, right? Like if I'm just going off of what Brock Purdy looked like physically, then I would have never, ever believed in him as a 3rd round talent. Like can you imagine how asinine that I would have looked if he didn't pan out? To be like, dude, why did you ever think that? How could you think that guy's a 3rd round talent? He was the last pick in the draft and he sucked. Well, then I would have pointed this. I'd have been like, well, his confidence, his intelligence. That was a big reason why I was a big Trey Lance guy. It wasn't, everybody's like, oh, you love 6'4" guy. Like, yes, of course. This is athletics, by the way. Don't know if you know, but you're talking about the best athletes in the world. I think athleticism does matter in athletics. Call me crazy, but that's just me. That being said, it's not the most important thing. And when I talked about Trey Lance forever, it was always like, how intelligent he was, how he ran the pro style offense, how he got in a huddle and had to spew a big verbose playbook, play in and play out. How when he got to the line of scrimmage, he actually had autonomy to call his own checks and audibles and did all those things. That was the reason I was big on Trey Lance. It wasn't the athleticism. Now that was like the cherry on top, but that was like the 5th, 6th, 7th thing down the list. So I do actually factor in those things. 100% I do. So I
If
don't know
only
where
he was
that
able to call
that's coming from.
audibles. If only Trey Lance was able to call audibles, would he have audible?
That would have been the difference,
of
man.
that run.
Oh, he probably would have, because the week of the game he kept saying that he didn't feel comfortable running those plays, and then he ran them and snapped his leg.
Man, that's crazy.
Steve-O says, gonna need to see more clips on Purdy before I judge you. I don't really care. I'm not. Listen, it was more of a thing because people said that I wasn't first on it, and I disagree. So I've got receipts. So tell me otherwise. But listen, if you think I'm a hater, then I'm a hater. I don't really.
You're a
I
hater.
can't change your opinion. I definitely am a hater. I do have an undergrad. No, I don't.
Dude, if you
Demarcus
see that,
Russell,
that's
dude.
crazy.
Actually, let me move the camera. It's right here. No, that's wow. Talk about a major bust. Jamarcus Russell, man. Ugh. Anyways, all right, brother. Hey, man, thanks for doing these shows with me Thursday. Really appreciate it. I don't know how we got an hour and a half out of this show. That's kind of wild. I always think I always have this fear during the off season, especially. I'm like, God, how are we going to make it to like 45 minutes? And then every single time it ends up being crazy long. I don't know how that happens, but appreciate you for being a great co-host as always. Next week, the schedule will have been out. We will have seen rookie minicamp, so there's going to be a ton to talk about. Look forward to that. Everybody in the chat, everybody that contributed either with messages, hitting the like button, subscribing, super chats, anything. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Stay blessed. Have a great weekend. Unless something crazy happens, you'll probably hear me Monday. See you then. Peace.
Peace.